What is up, Facebook world? Hopefully, everyone is having a fabulous weekend, even though it is extremely cold outside. Man, how about does anyone know how the Broncos did today? Oh, that may be a sore subject for my Bronco fans, since they didn't even make the playoffs. Either way, enough of my not so funny jokes, more than likely. I will be talking about protecting your family, your income, and your assets for the next 4 Sundays in a row on Sunday Smart. So this will be episode 104. Please remember to subscribe to my Facebook Live so whenever I do come on, you are notified. You don't want to miss it. Make sure to share. If you think I'm worthy of being shared, I would appreciate it very much. And I'll give it just a couple minutes for folks to join. How's everyone's weekend? And Kendra, I'm glad you thought that Broncos joke was funny. I just thought of that, so that was off the cuff. Okay, well, let's do this bad boy. So, first of all, my name is Michael Weaver, State Farm agent. I've been with State Farm for almost 7 years now. I've owned my own business for 3. So yes, I'm an agent. I'm a business owner. Graduated from Baker University with my business management degree. Graduated from the American College with my retirement income certified professionals designation or degree. So I think it's always good just to list that stuff so you all know that it's coming. This information is coming from a credible source. I do not claim to know everything, but one thing that you always get from me is 100% honesty. And so my only favor of you is ask questions if you have them, and be open-minded. So, like the title says, we are going to be talking about protecting yourself. Yourself, your family, your assets, your income. Like I said, it's going to be a four night. Tonight, Sunday night, will be episode number 1. We will be talking about protecting yourself from liability risk. So taking liability off the table, being risk managers, making sure that in the event something happens, that your income can't be taken from you, that your assets can't be taken from you, that you don't have to put second mortgages on the house, you don't have to put loans on the cars, making sure your retirement savings stays your savings and doesn't become someone else's. So that's going to be night 1. Night 2, we'll be talking about disability income and statistics around disability. Why disability insurance is one of the most used insurances, yet a lot of people don't have it, or they've only got it through their work provider, which there's some benefits of having it outside of work. So that will be next Sunday. So that's protecting your income, like making sure that in the event something happens, your family will still receive an income check even if you can't work. The last 2 Sundays, or night 3 and 4, we'll be talking about life insurance. The first night we'll be talking term insurance. The second night we'll be talking permanent insurance and why that's important to your family, what the policies are, the ins and outs, the goods of both, and why I do this. So I think it's important for you all to know why I do this. I don't do this for me. I purely do this for you guys. I do this because I think it's my due diligence to come to, and Facebook's the easiest way to reach a large amount of people at a time. So I think it's my duty to come to you with knowledge of something that could potentially protect your family. We, in my office, we're always talking about an I wish versus I'm glad. And I can guarantee after watching this series for the next 4 weeks, you will either be saying one of two things. You're going to be saying, if something ever so you're going to watch this the next 4 weeks, and if something ever happens, you're either going to be able to say, man, I wish I would have asked Michael more questions, or I wish I'd have scheduled a time to meet with Michael to talk about those things. Or you're going to say, if something ever happens, you're going to say, Michael, I'm so glad I scheduled an appointment, came to your office, and we got that in place. That's kind of the motto in my office. I wish versus I'm glad. I definitely live an I'm glad lifestyle. I probably have more insurance than insurance I need. But either way, now to the good stuff. Courtney, thank you. The little brother got this for me for Christmas. It is a sweet hoodie, so shout out to the little bro. The Chiefs will be playing the Steelers next week, so it's going to be a tough game, but I have a good feeling. Either way, does anyone have any questions before we get started? Any questions at all? If not, we'll get right into this bad boy. All right. I'm seeing some likes. This is good. Up and even heart. If you guys think I deserve a like, please shoot me a like. Hearts are even better. So, asset protection, liability protection. So what we're talking about here, we're talking about your auto liability limits, your home liability limits. If you own rental property, your rental property liability limits. If you own a boat owner's liability limits, all liability, okay? So, on your auto liability limits, let's just tackle auto first. So, liability limits are if you were to get into an accident, you hit someone or something, that is what is going to pay for either the medical bills or the property damage. So, it's called bodily injury limits and property damage limits. I professionally recommend and personally carry minimum of $250,000 per person in bodily injury limits, up to a total of $500,000 if multiple people were injured. So if you got pen and paper and you're taking notes, write those two numbers down: 250,000, 500,000. You want to make sure your auto liability limits are that much. It may increase your premiums just a tad bit, but I promise you it's not that much. It's literally pennies on the dollar for the thousands of insurance that you get. Now, why that's important: if you get into an accident, you hit somebody, we are going to pay, or your insurance company is going to pay, up to $250,000 per person that they injure, up to a total of $500,000. From a property damage standpoint, I like $100,000 a minimum. So property damage covers everything in an accident besides the people. So vehicles, guardrails, fences, houses. So your limits should read $250,000, $500,000, $100,000. Now, why those limits are important? It's because the average medical bill last year in the state of Missouri, when talking about a motor vehicle accident, was over $100,000. Depending on what source you get it from, it was about $110,000 per person on average. So, with that being said, let's say you carried $100,000 in liability insurance. In that example, you hit somebody, you hurt them. Well, your insurance company is going to pay the first $100,000. Who do you think is responsible for the additional $10,000? You are. So if you were thinking, I am, you're right. You are responsible for that additional $10,000. So then your question is, where is that $10,000 going to come from? Well, easy. It's going to come either from your paychecks. So in the state of Missouri, folks can garnish your wages up to 20% for 10 years. They can make you put second mortgages on the house. They can make you put loans on your cars. That is the whole purpose of carrying good liability limits. Like, if you're going to have insurance, you might as well have great insurance. You would much rather your insurance company be responsible for the entire bill than a portion of it, and then you be responsible for some of it. Like, that doesn't even make sense. Like, yeah, Eek's right. It worries me a little bit. So, liability limits on auto: $250,000, $500,000, $100,000. If you have any questions, ask away. But I'm going to go on to homeowners. So, homeowners. I recommend every single homeowner carry a minimum of $1 million in liability protection on their home. A minimum of $1 million in liability protection. The reason that is if someone gets hurt on your property or in your home. So let's say you have little kids. Let's say your 7-year-old has a friend over. The friend falls down the stairs, breaks a couple bones, whatever. You're going to be responsible for that. The parents are going to sue you. So not only are the parents probably going to sue you for medical bills, they could potentially sue you for pain and suffering for the rest of that child's life, whatever else. So that is why proper liability is important. For all homeowners, you should be looking at your homeowner's declaration page and see if you have what your liability limit is. Luke, what is up, my man? Okay, so auto and home, those are your personal liability, basically protection limits. One other thing I'm going to tell you about from a personal standpoint, a way to protect yourself for a very inexpensive amount. It's called, what you all may know it as, is an umbrella. What the actual insurance definition term is personal liability umbrella policy. So an umbrella is super easy. It's exactly what it sounds like. So it's literally like if you picture an umbrella over you and everything you have. So your car, your 401k, your house, your lake house, your boat, your money in the bank, your paycheck, your income. Umbrella, all this is under it. Okay, umbrellas are great, and I recommend a minimum of a $1 million umbrella. That's how they come. You might even consider bumping it up to $2 million for an extra $100 a year. That's about how much it costs. So either way, umbrella, something happens. Let's say you get into a bad car accident, you put someone in a coma, you have the $250,000 limits that I recommended in the very beginning. What happens in that scenario? And let's say their medical bill was $1 million, just to make this easy math for me. What's going to happen in that scenario is your auto policy pays out the first $250,000. Then the umbrella would kick in an additional $750,000 up to an additional $1 million. That is why personal liability umbrella policies are so nice, and they're so inexpensive. For $1 million in coverage, you're going to spend less than $150 a year typically. For $2 million, you can add an additional $100 on top of that, so it's about $250 a year. So very inexpensive. We're talking pennies on the dollar for millions in protection. The whole reason you have liability protection is to put it, you mitigate your risk. So you put the risk on State Farm or whoever your insurance company is, instead of putting the risk on yourself. The whole idea of being self-insured, that's silly, quite frankly. And I mean, even if you're a billionaire, like if something happens and you have a bad accident, that's just more money that someone's going to sue you for. That's awesome, man. Yeah, that was a good game. So far we've covered auto, home, and personal liability umbrella policy, or auto, home, and umbrella. Any questions regarding that? Any questions at all? Thank you, Miss Cindy. I appreciate it. Okay. No questions? Even if you have questions, ask them away. And if you're watching this even after the live feed ends, ask away, because this will stay posted on my Facebook. And also, we're going to be creating, or already have created, a Michael Weaver Insurance YouTube feed. So within the next week, every single live feed that I've done will be on my YouTube page. So make sure you check it out. You don't have to be a millionaire to be sued like one. Absolutely. In-home business, one insurance needed to be covered. So if with your in-home business, you need to contact your insurance company and make sure that their liability covers you. If the homeowner's liability doesn't, which there's a great possibility that it doesn't, you need, number one, a business policy. If you don't want to spend money on a business policy so business policy is going to cover your contents and your liability. If you don't have a business policy or don't want one, you should at least check out what's called a commercial liability umbrella policy. So instead of a personal liability umbrella policy, it's a commercial liability. So think of it as a business umbrella, a commercial umbrella. So that would cover you from a liability standpoint, from a in-home standpoint, or a business standpoint if somebody were to sue you. Great question. That was a great question, Molly. Yeah. Yeah, I take requests. Uh, no, you don't want to hear me sing, my man. Your ears will be hurting by the time I'm like 5 seconds into it. So we've covered auto, we've covered home, we've covered umbrella. Um, Next, we would be talking about. I was going to cover the commercial liability umbrella policy, but I've already covered that. So a commercial liability umbrella policy, again, it's like a personal, only it's for business purposes. So let's think about rental properties. So I highly recommend everyone that has rental properties, if you don't cover them under your personal liability umbrella policy, because you can cover a few, but once you have over a certain amount of rental properties, you need to cover it on your commercial side. So have a commercial liability umbrella policy. Talking about rentals, let's talk about rental liability. I recommend a minimum of $1 million in rental property liability. The reason I recommend that, you don't know what goes on at the house. So if something happens, I doubt the tenant's going to be the one that gets sued. You as the landlord are going to be the one that has to take on that lawsuit. So a minimum of $1 million. You may even consider bumping it up to $2 million. Just unless you're over at that house every day checking it out, or you have very trustworthy tenants, I recommend having great liability limits from that standpoint as well. Again, the goal for the liability protection is to protect your income and your assets from lawsuits. Okay, that's the whole purpose you have liability protection. That's the whole purpose you have insurance, liability insurance on your car. That's the whole purpose you have liability insurance on your home. That's the whole purpose you consider getting an umbrella. And what I mean by liability insurance are liability limits when I say that. There's no such thing as liability insurance on a home, but the liability portion of your homeowners is to protect your income and your assets from being taken from you due to a lawsuit. The insurance company takes on all the risk, so you need to become a risk mitigator. Okay, that's my job as an insurance agent. So even though I specialize in investments and retirement planning, we take the insurance business, the auto and the home, the liability insurance portion of it very seriously. Every single customer of mine, I have this conversation with. It's very important to protect yourself. We live in a very sue-happy society, and it is what it is, but the last thing you want is a freak accident to happen, and then you get sued for everything that you've been saving your entire life. We can do that, Luke. Luke, I've even been meaning to call you anyway, so I'll call you this week. We can get that done. Inland marine policy. An inland marine policy, Jeremy, that's a great question. So an inland marine, that's not necessarily liability, but that's a policy that covers business property. If it can't be covered under a business policy, or you can cover it under what's called a personal articles policy, which is like a rider on a homeowner's policy. It's a separate policy completely, but that's what I would recommend for firearms, because you're not going to be making any money with firearms, so you can cover that personally, which would be a personal articles policy. Great question. Any questions at all? Any questions regarding liability at all? I think I covered it for the most part. So liability, the reason liability is important is because it protects you from lawsuits. It protects your wages from being garnished. It protects you from having to put a second mortgage on the house. It protects you from having to get a loan on the car that you just paid off. It protects your emergency savings. Like, it makes sure that all of the money is going to come from the insurance company, not you as the consumer. That's the whole reason you want good liability limits. That's the whole reason you should consider a personal liability umbrellas policy. If you're a business owner, I highly recommend a commercial liability umbrella policy on top of all your other insurance you have. I know being a business owner, we have tons of insurance, but you can't protect yourself enough from a liability point. Yep, YouTube, check it out. Michael Weaver Insurance. Any questions? Like I said, this is night 1 of 4. Night 1, we're doing liability insurance. Night 2, we're going to do disability insurance. That's going to be a great one. Definitely put it on your calendar next Sunday, 7 o'clock. I have a feeling you guys will learn a lot of stuff you don't know about the disability insurance statistics in today's society, of who uses it, things of that nature. And nights 3 and 4, we'll be talking life insurance. Again, remember to subscribe to my Facebook live feed. Shoot me a share if you think I deserve a share. Even if you're watching this and as the live feeds ends here in just a second, ask questions. I'll jump right on and answer them. Does that make sense, guys? So again, going back to that I wish versus I'm glad. So what I would expect of you, or would hope you would do, is look at your auto declaration pages tonight. Look at your home declaration pages. Even if it's not tonight, this week. Make sure your liability limits are good. If they're not, call your insurance agent and request that your liability limits be bumped up. I promise it's not going to cost that much more money. Better yet, call me and I'll give you a free quote and I'll make sure your liability limits are good. That's going to be the only sales pitch I give you tonight, I promise. Lastly, umbrella policy. I highly recommend checking out an umbrella policy. Very inexpensive for $1 million in protection. It literally will put all of the risk to the insurance company in most situations. Thank you. Thanks, Mitchell. That was good. Any more questions? If not, I'll be wrapping this bad boy up. So any questions at all before I get off? Any questions at all? I just covered a ton of content, so if you have any questions, the only dumb question is the question that's not asked. Someone very wise told me that one time. So, all right, Luke, have a good night as well, my man. See you, Christy. All right then. If no questions, up your liability limits. Check out next Sunday, 7 o'clock. Check us out Wednesday at 7 for Weaver Wednesday. Have a great rest of the weekend, a great Sunday evening, and an amazing week. See you guys later.